even at the beginning of this conference, one of the announcements that was being made is that there were Africans who are referred to as Francophone.
It is high time for France to lift its knee off our neck and put an end to this unjust oppression.
In other words, there are those amongst us who, in describing them, we describe them by the language of the colonizer.
Centuries of misery, human trafficking, colonization, and neocolonization have caused immeasurable suffering. It's time to put an end to this cycle of oppression.
Africa is the only continent that we still refer to as Francophone.
It's high time for France to leave us alone.
Lusophone, Anglophone, and sometimes even Arabophone. It is not lost on me that even I am speaking in a language that is alien to us. I would have preferred to speak in Kiswahili, but that is the state of our continent. Very soon, we will call ourselves Chinaphone.
Growing up in apartheid Zimbabwe, well, Rhodesia at that time, to have been surrounded by injustices of the highest order, to be abused and mistreated in your own homeland by strangers, by foreigners who don't belong there, and feel completely powerless was a very painful thing. But more importantly for me, I was raised by a father who was old enough to remember when our land was taken by the British. People are not aware that, well, some may be. Britain had what they call the Loot Law, where if you were a veteran of the First or Second World War, or just an adventurous Briton, you were guaranteed 2,000 hectares of land. Hectares! So take 2,000 times 2.2. That's almost like 4,400 hectares of land in Zimbabwe, plus any loot from the people. So what they had done was they divide the country into 4 sections, 4 regions. Region 1, good rains, good soil, perfect area to grow and farm and thrive. Region 2, pretty close to Region 1, maybe not as good, but also pretty good. Region 3 was kind of iffy, more good for cattle ranching. Region 4, nobody should live there. Infested with mosquitoes and tsetse flies and all that, and it doesn't rain. If it rains, within 30 minutes, the soil was like sand. You can't even tell that it has rained. So they set out to push black people in Rhodesia at that time from Region 1 and 2 into, if you're lucky, you ended up in Region 3, and then, but they definitely wanted us in Region 4. And so the way they would push people up, if you were a British man who landed in Zimbabwe, they were pushing them to go to Region 1 and Region 2. You were just sent into a particular direction. You put a peg, you get on a horse, and you ride until either you or the horse got tired. You stop and you put your peg. That's day 1. The following day you do the same thing. So it took 4 days to map up your land. And when you're finished, everything in it is yours minus the people. So they'll just go in and tell the people, in this direction, go past this mountain, in this direction, go past this river, your land is now mine. People left with whatever they could carry. My father was a young boy of about 13. He remembers waking up in the morning, and back then Zimbabweans would wear a little flap on the front and back. They didn't wear pants. So the white men with their pants, they called them the men without knees. So you remember seeing men without knees on a horse, touching the huts. The whole village was ablaze. One hut was left standing. It turned out my father's aunt was pregnant and was due to deliver any day. So they had asked for permission for her to stay until she delivered. So permission was granted for the husband, her, and another aunt, a grandmother who was the midwife. And they decided maybe if we leave a child, they'll have mercy on them and not kill them. So they decided to keep my father, who was around 12, 13 years of age. And he remembers having this one little hut left standing. The entire village was just bent down. And every morning, the man without knees would come on a horse wanting to know if my aunt had delivered. Unfortunately for them, it took 3 weeks before she finally delivered. And every morning, the men without knees came. They just knew that was their last day. They were afraid that he was going to shoot them because he threatened to shoot them if she didn't deliver. 3 days after she delivered, they had to walk, go find the rest of the family members. Unfortunately for them, no sooner had they regrouped, here comes another man without knees. He mapped out his land, just keep moving. So that's the story I kept being told by my father. And he would always end with, one of these days, we will get our land back. And I'm so glad that he lived to see us get our land back. When I hear people talk about, oh, Mugabe and how the land was taken, it wasn't fair, and I'm like, give me 5 minutes. Let me tell you how the land was taken from Zimbabwean people. What Mugabe did was very civilized. If you were to live what my father lived through, you'd understand why what Mugabe did was civilized.
It's time for France to take a cue from its European neighbors and learn a valuable lesson in independence. Germany is the leading economic power in Europe, significantly surpassing France, which is ranked as the 3rd or 4th largest economic power globally. Germany does not exploit any country, any colony. I can mention Italy, I can mention Spain, who had colonies before, but who do not exploit anyone, who do not interfere, who do not impose leaders in their former colonies. On what grounds does France believe it can continue to impose leaders on us and make choices on our behalf? This must come to an end. And the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elites, and the African diaspora all stand united in saying no, it cannot continue any longer. France's hypocrisy is evident and pervasive in daily life. Let's examine the cases of Mali and Chad as prime examples of this hypocrisy. In Chad, where the constitutional process has been interrupted, France applauded and its president visited to officially consecrate the new king's coronation ceremony. In Mali, where it is not the constitutional process that has been interrupted, but the transition process, France has condemned and even packed up its things to say that it is leaving Mali. That's hypocrisy. It's the double standard. It is the double language that France employs in its dealings with Africa. During our questioning of Mr. Jean-Yves Le Drian regarding the situation in Ivory Coast and France's decision to allow a 3rd term, he provided a clear explanation. He stated that while he accepted the 3rd term for Ouattara, he refuses it for Belarus. He emphasized that France has condemned the situation in Belarus and has actively encouraged the European Union to do the same. Le Drian explains that in Belarus, millions protested, unlike Ivory Coast, where there were no mass demonstrations on the streets. This is how France deals with African issues. Personally, we expect absolutely nothing from France. We desire her to cease meddling in our matters so that the people of Senegal can exercise their freedom of choice rather than being influenced by France's selection of a candidate using the tactics we are aware of. We begin by targeting individuals, adorning them with the Legion of Honor or a similar knightly rank, enlisting them in Masonic lodges, and informing them to prepare themselves as they will be next in line. Even the hypothesis that Macky Sall may not succeed, we know who is being prepared by France. This must come to an end. It will not occur in this manner any longer. Let's be clear. We have absolutely nothing against the French people. In France, both political and citizen voices are rising to hold and express the same discourse as the one I'm currently presenting to you. For example, the deputies, such as Mrs. Frédérique Dumas, who regularly speaks on the platform of the Assembly, who regularly writes to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, since she is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, to raise this unfair behavior of France towards Africa, hold the same speech as us. The same Mr. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Jean-Paul Lecoq, André Chassaigne, all deputies, hold the same discourse as us and hundreds of other voices. The NGO endures. Like other non-profit organizations, are doing remarkable work in the same direction. We strongly urge France to listen to the voices that speak to it about our plan for a more collaborative, fairer, and sustainable partnership between Africa and France. It is crucial that we work together towards a future that is equitable, just, and environmentally conscious. If she listens, I believe we'll have beautiful days ahead in our collaboration together. If he doesn't know how to cut it, thinking he can continue to function like in the time of our grandfathers, this African youth no longer accepts it. France must make preparations for a definitive break and completely withdraw from Africa. Africa belongs to Africans, not France. She belongs to no one else, neither China, nor the United States, nor anyone else.